scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in surprise when you hear these zombies shriek.
Everything cool with you?
Good. I'm riding along, I'm doing alright. You know, crying.
Surfing.
You know?
Crying. Yeah, I like that. I don't do much of that anymore ever since I have sobered up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that, like, medication, I mean that drugs-wise, like, a lot less crying in my life. It's good. It's real good. Opening line of dialogue. You play a lot of video games. I like to talk about that, so I have to ask.
All right.
Horror games. I know you said you don't play many of them because you're usually too much of a puss.
Exactly.
But I think I still think it's like a line of question, like, what's the most terrifying experience you had playing a video game? That's always the best line to start out with, because I don't think I've talked about it yet, so yeah. I could go mine.
So hands down, it's got to be the Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth, when you have to actually escape from Innsmouth and you're in your room just trying to go to fucking bed. You're just trying to go to sleep, and you got some
here's your room key, and he like hands it to you.
I had a bad feeling about that guy.
I'm just gonna go upstairs. And it gives you like the vision. It's like it's like shit's gonna go down. That guy, was there a dead body in that room? Oh no.
Yeah, you start snooping around in the back office and you see like a severed hand or some bullshit. Then I come across a fucking save point and I'm like, oh god, here we fucking go.
Yeah.
And
let's get this over with.
Yeah. I'm trying to go to sleep. Then you got some fish face motherfucker trying to bang down the door. So started running across the rooftops and trying to run away. And I don't know if it was just some primal fear of fish people. Shout out to Alex Jones.
Fishman, Call of Cthulhu, Alex Jones mishmash, Fishman.
But it really fucking freaked me out, and I had to keep playing until I got to a certain point where they gave me a gun, and that's where I start to like horror games.
Oh my god!
Scare me enough until I'm backed in the corner, and then give me a gun, and then
we get this started.
X gonna give it to you.
Watching Super Best Friends shout out. Play Call of Cthulhu. I think they play seven episodes of it. They don't even finish the fucking game. He legitimately did not get a single weapon until episode 7, and at that point it's like the farmhouse where you get the guy out of the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the first point where you get a weapon, or is there earlier? Because I'm not. I
feel like I remember getting one in the warehouse where I'm like trying to hide from people.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense because there was like a fight or flight like description that they give the player,
right.
And he took the stealth option, and I was just like, wait, can you attack here? I don't know.
I'll always go for attacking.
Yeah, when I tend to play horror games, it's kind of you can only be a pussy for so long before you need to muster up and get shit done, and if the game allows a weapon, then I just go barreling into rooms, no consequences.
But sometimes it's like they give you a weapon just so you can fuck yourself up. I mean, like...
That's true.
Alien Isolation is a great example.
Yeah.
That Taurus is cool and all. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful gun, but it's not going to do fuck all against a xenomorph.
That's such a fun game to talk about.
Yeah.
Episode 20 with Gnarly Charlie, I actually watched him play that on Premiere, and it's... No game has ever given me such anxiety because no game has ever been so authentic about horror.
Like, if I have to play Alien Isolation, you better believe I'm playing Alien vs. Predator afterwards, just to like, I can be an alien.
It's like a chaser. It's like just so you could calm yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the AVP game. A lot of people.
It was pretty good.
A lot of people shit on it, but like, there's nothing like being a predator and swinging around and like just knifing people without them looking. It's like.
Yeah, it's
man, just playing as a commando and trying to do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression the entire time.
I would never play as a commando. Like, it's because to me, to me, playing as a commando in an AVP is sort of like playing WoW or something and choosing a human warrior. Like, what are you doing, bud?
What are you doing, man? I think I did it for the achievements because I'm a empty shell of a human being.
And humans also have like pretty great ratios in WoW.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's changed by now, but every man for himself is fucking broken.
I don't play well. I think you and Frowns would get along though, because he's jerking off on those pandas all over the place.
I feel like a baby boomer when it comes to WoW, because I'm always like, back in my day, it was a real game. The undead were undead, the trolls were trolls, and the gals were hot. And I just really feel like every time I play, I think about the old times. And even now, if I try to log back in, I don't have any of the connections I used to. I don't know anyone else.
Mm-hmm. The Leroy Jenkins times.
Yeah, and it's like Wrath of the Lich King is sort of when people started to die off, and just being in the cold, in the northern, and just like not really playing with anyone else made it seem that much lonelier and colder. I was just like, man, this is...
Your PC overlord status has only impressed me more and more the more you talk about WoW. I admittedly am nowhere close to making that jump, and am probably years away from doing so, no matter how easy it is. My first terrifying experience playing a video game was Resident Evil 4.
Ooh.
And I'm 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting in my friend's house. He leaves the room to go do something with his parents or to go to the bathroom or something, I don't remember. And I just remember having to play the entire intro by myself.
Oh, Christ.
And I'm sitting there, and I've never played a horror game before, at least not, like I've watched a horror game maybe, but I've never played one. Like, I was no noob to, like, Silent Hill, but I've never touched it. I've just watched someone play it. And I'm sitting there, and, like, you're in the car, and the guys are doing their, like, back and forth jib-jab bullshit, and then the car stops and you have to cross the bridge and investigate the town, and I'm just like, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. Starting to feel like Disco Dracula, just screaming, I don't like this at everything, and I'm just like, I'm investigating the house, and it gets to the point where you see, like, you hear people, but you don't see them, and then you notice that they're burning your drivers at a fucking stake in the middle of the town, and you're just like, well, I guess I'm glad I got out of the car. And then you hear the chainsaw rev up, and then the guy busts in through the downstairs door, and you're upstairs, and you're like, he's not going to come up here, is he? He doesn't know I'm up. He comes up the stairs, and
he tries to give you a hug.
He looks right at you, and, like, I shit my pants. You're supposed to, like, jump out of a window onto the roof and then jump on. Yeah. I died, and I put the controller down, and I, like, moved myself across this floor, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
I guess I'm just more mature.
And is so accurate at that age. And I know Frowns would give me shit if I didn't talk about Dead Space.
Oh,
but
Dead Space.
First time playing Dead Space, he's just like, you're gonna love this. It's sci-fi, monsters, and I'm like, is it scary? He's like, nah. And I boot it up, and I'm like, again, shitting myself. And Isaac walking around this empty shit by yourself, and then all the fucking necromorphs come out of nowhere, and they're chasing you down to the fucking elevator, and you don't have shit, and it's just like, run, Isaac, run. And I'm just like, I threw the PS3 controller across the room. I was like, fuck you for making me play this, Frowns. I don't like you anymore.
Like, dude, I'm just the mechanic. Can we not with all this shit?
Like, I have never been so, like, mad and so angry at one of my best friends, and then give it a year's time, I turn that shit around on its head, and I love Dead Space now. I've beaten all 3 of the games, and I could beat them with my, like, hands tied behind my back. I'm almost certain I could play with, like, my dick or my mouth, and I would be totally fucking fine. And I love the narrative, and I care about Isaac, and I hope they continue it, but Dead Space 3 was a fucking mess.
See, I haven't played any of the Dead Spaces, but I appreciate it a lot, because my stepdad was never much of a gamer, like, at all. He actually made fun of it a lot. Okay. But Silent Hill, Dead Space, these horror games really got him into gaming in general, which meant a lot to me. Because when I was
a mature narrative.
And not only that, when I was younger, he'd like to delete my Pokemon saves. So now I had something of his, to go ahead and delete.
Oh, you like Silent Hill, huh? Well, there goes, you were 50% way through the game? That's unfortunate. Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate. I'm trying to think of, like, all the other horror games that I've probably had, like, a love-hate relationship with. And I think, like, out of all of them, Silent Hill is probably on the top of my list. I think Resident Evil's on the top of my list. Because they're such hit or miss kind of games, to me at least.
Right.
And I know that's not a very distinct perspective. Like, a lot of people feel that way about certain Silent Hill and Resident Evil games. Like, Revelations was a fucking mess. 5 was like a downhill slope.
Yeah, people weren't really impressed with 5.
6 was not good. And 7 was fucking awesome. So it's just like this weird up and down notion with how they handle the games. I'm really glad they woke the fuck up.
Yeah.
I think PT is definitely in respect to getting a lot of people to consider narrative and first-person gameplay to, like, kind of kickstart these franchises. Rest in peace, Silent Hills. I will never get to play you.
R.I.P.
Death Stranding looks pretty dope, though.
Stranded.
The game.
I'm not familiar.
Death Stranding.
Oh.
It's the game that Kojima and Guillermo del Toro and all the people that were involved with Silent Hills, Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen, they all, when Konami dropped Silent Hills, Kojima was so pissed that he left and just said, fine, I'll fucking do it myself. But he couldn't just, the IP was already gone. He couldn't just make a Silent Hill game by himself. So he said he did the best thing he could do, which was make a Kojima game, Kojima, to the best of his ability. So completely original narrative, all the same people that were involved. I think it's one of the person who does the music is from the Silent Hill series. Like, he hopped over. Guillermo del Toro, really great horror movie dude.
Yeah, big name.
Yeah, what is, I always forget about the cockroach movie and what it's called. Oh, shit. I'm gonna hate myself for forgetting it. Guillermo del Toro's, like, first movie into, the foray of, like, big budget cinema was a movie about, like, cockroaches that evolved and started to imitate humans on, like, a large scale and start to, like, eat them and consume them and, like, just
That's pretty fucked.
Oh, it's great. I mean, the effects were shit because it was the 90s, but it's still...
Oh, yeah.
But it's still crazy that someone like Guillermo del Toro could start with that shit, move on to Blade, and then totally do his own thing with, like, Pan's Labyrinth, Orphanage, and Pacific Rim and shit like that. This dude, like, he's awesome. Hellboy, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame they won't be able to finish that, though, that franchise.
Why is that? Kind of out of the loop.
They got a new team, new director, new Hellboy, new cast, new everything.
Oh, what the fuck?
Granted, the cast sounds awesome so far,
but I mean,
but no one beats Ron Perlman, you know. And Guillermo del Toro is like his baby. It was such a but we gotta give BPRD a little bit more respect. Guillermo pretty much always shat on BPRD just to make Hellboy all that much better, and BPRD in itself deserves a little bit more justification. And I think that it's something about vampires, so it's going to be about the BPRD facing off with vampires, and it's going to be cool. I don't know who's directing it yet, but it has David Harbour from Stranger Things playing Hellboy, which is going to be cool.
Now, this isn't really a horror game, but it's got a lot to do with, the horror scene, I guess. Depends on how much of a pussy you are.
Yeah.
When it comes to monsters.
Big pussy.
The Vampire's Masquerade series. Well, it's just one game, but that really needs to make a comeback. I think, especially with just the talent in the gaming industry nowadays.
I've never played, never even heard of it. What's Vampire's Masquerade?
Oh man, it's pretty much based in the same world of World of Darkness, same universe. So it's like got a lot of incredibly beautiful RPG elements to it. There's like a bunch of different vampire clans with all different kinds of abilities and powers, and it brings in so many colorful characters. Just shout out to Vampire Masquerade. It's a beautiful.
So what? It's like an RPG version of like Castlevania?
No, more like if you had supernatural and God, that doesn't even feel accurate. Because
it depends on how much of Supernatural you're talking about.
Yeah, because there's only one kind of vampire in Supernatural. But
True.
what I mean by like adding Supernatural in there is because there's more than just vampires. There's like geists and mummies and all sorts of crazy fucking bullshit.
I am a big Supernatural fan, so I do get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's sort of like Underworld meets Supernatural meets something else entirely.
That's a good point. Underworld, kind of wonder where that franchise went. Okay, so we've talked about horror games. This is a good intro. We have a new reader here with us today. Really excited. This is a fun thing for me. This is a treat because with me today is the first person I could consider like you were a fan before you came onto the show. Like, it wasn't something like I didn't just like invite you on because we were close. It was literally just like I made the show, you inquired about it, you started to like it, and we started to talk about it so much that I was just like, come on the show. Like, I love having new people on. It's not like you're a stranger to me. We talked in high school. Maybe not as much as I wish we did, but high school was fucking stupid.
It was
That's
stupid.
as much of an excuse as we need. I still think this is really fucking cool. This is like a special thing, like having someone who was a fan. I would consider you a fan of the show.
Fanboy!
Yeah, right. And now we have you on, and it's really cool. And I think this is like the first of what I would consider many people who are probably going to fall into the same vein. But you're the first one, and it's episode 52, and we're well established at this point with the varying spectrums of bullshit we cover in the creepypasta lore of the internet stories, and got to introduce you with your pseudonym here. You're choosing to go by the name Cryin Hawaiian.
Yes.
So okay. So when I introduced Django, I had to say like, you are white. Cryin Hawaiian, you are black.
I mean, Obama's black. He's the cryingest Hawaiian we know.
That's actually very true. Cryin Obama gif. I think it doesn't fucking matter, but I still think it's funny how we subvert things, and I think if there's anything that makes the Cryin Hawaiian most accurate, it's the fact that you're wearing like a Hawaiian button up, and like that's worth noting.
Oh yeah,
and I'm totally okay with that, but I do have to ask inspiration.
Well, I wear Hawaiian shirts like 80% of the time, and I feel like just by saying that, I've outed myself to the people who know me. Like they're like, oh, it's this fucking douchebag.
And that's another thing I love about you took to this podcast so well, and you liked listening to it, that you've shared it with people and you've put it on for people, and that's so fucking cool. And more people need to fucking do that. More people on this fucking show need to share it with their fucking friends.
Yeah, come on, be a super fan.
Like you've been on. The person who's been on this the most, I've already mentioned. I'm not going to say his fucking name again. He doesn't deserve it, and I'm not going to play the music.
Wow.
12 episodes, and he hasn't told anyone about it. Not even the girl he's talking to. And I'm hurt. Anyway, so this is Lotsa Pasta. This is a podcast where we read and discuss the horrors and the creepies. And we have at least one treat lined up amidst other popular treats that I've been purveying, if you will, from creepypasta sites. Taking a lot of recommendations today to kind of roll in Cryin Hawaiian into the fold of what we do here on Lotsa Pasta. And before we get into the story, I think want to ask, your favorite episode is either 7 or 12. Your favorite reader is definitely Sir Booberry.
Probably. I know for hands down my favorite episode, or Yeah, hands down favorite episode in story is going to be World Booth Industries, just because it was just so gripping.
Booth World Industries.
Oh shit! I'm a terrible fan.
No,
Booth World
okay.
Industries.
It's one of those short stories that we had never heard of, and it just I found it on, I think, Reddit No Sleep, and I was just like, okay, and we just did it, and it came out surprisingly well, and I think editing it was really fun, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad it got you into this, and I always yell at Sue Blueberry to come onto the show more, and he lives in New Jersey, so that's impossible at this point. Friends don't let friends live in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We but I think I still think it's great that you're a fan, and love having you on. Hopefully this is the first of several episodes that you'll wanna come back for. We'll see. We haven't gotten to the stories yet, but let's see how it goes, and if you're into it, options open. The first story we're finding is something you suggested. We're going to open with a suggestion. It's nothing new. We started with Abandoned by Disney, No End House, Squidward Suicide. Suggestions always open to. It beats playing the number random game. We have Room 401, and I have to ask, have you read this before?
I've had it read to me.
So you've listened to it prior. Okay.
That makes it sound like I was tucked in with a little bear.
Is it scary?
It's unsettling. It's unsettling because it involves a pretty, I guess, somewhat popular song from the 80s. Watching You, or Private Eyes, Hollow Notes.
Nice.
And it just changes how I feel about that song.
That's great.
Ever since.
I love
it's
that.
Just so creepy, and then you actually listen to the fucking words.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Taking inspiration from a song that was probably creepy back in the 80s.
And see, it wasn't meant to. And there's so many things like that. Like, if you play Fallout 4, that one song, Right Behind You, Baby. Yeah. I never found it creepy until the radio announcer was like, it's actually kind of creepy. And then I started listening to the words, and I'm like, fuck, man, there better not be a Deathclaw back there.
You fucking ghoulies coming out behind you. I'm really excited to read this. Do you want to get into it?
I haven't read out loud since like college. I hope I don't Mayweather it. Yeah.
Popcorn Cryin Hawaiian.
All right.
Room 401 from Reddit No Sleep.
Room 401. Franklin Waters checked in on my night audit shift. I'd been working for the Pink Ridge Inn for about 8 months. Originally during the evenings, but I was offered the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift after a few weeks because the previous night auditor had graduated college and moved on to a new career. It was mostly uneventful, mostly paperwork, had my fair share of walk-ins overnight, but Franklin Waters was different. He was a very particular man and had some special requests when I took down his information.
All right, so when you're writing this down, when you're writing down my information, I want you to unzip your fly and take down your pants and just, I'm sorry, this interview is going south.
So we don't do that here. First and most importantly, he explained, was that he worked nights and slept during the day. As a night auditor, I understood his sentiments. He had a groggy look to him, as if he didn't really sleep much, let alone during the day. He had a drooping, bloodshot eyes, a graying 5 o'clock shadow. He's wearing Hollow Notes shirt that I commented on, as a mutual fan. We struck up some polite small talk regarding their songs. His favorite was Private Eyes. Yeah, I can go for that, I quipped. He smiled for the first time during the check-in process at my joke, but it didn't last long. His second rule? No housekeeping. This wasn't so peculiar. We had a handful of long-term guests while I worked there, and a lot of them weren't comfortable with having strangers in their room while they were absent. But Franklin slept during the day, and would rather clean up after himself than be woken up by a maid at 11 in the morning. Once again, I get it. I'm a night owl too.
Kind of reading this as a night owl, like I don't get to sleep until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning most days. Like, I miss my night job, frankly, because it's so much more in tune with my schedule. but I feel like I relate to Franklin on several levels, and I don't want to because I feel like I know where this is going.
From someone who's been to a lot of weird-ass roadside motels,
Yeah.
you don't want to relate to anyone there. The third rule was that we were not to transfer any outside phone calls to his room or even tell someone whether he was there or not. Once again, not so strange. In fact, this was standard procedure. Guest privacy was taken very seriously by our staff, and I had no problem assuring him that his stay would be no one's business but his own. He explained that he'd recently divorced, he wanted peace from his bitch of an ex-wife. He made one exception though. If his son called, we were to transfer the call immediately. I told him my name was Andrew. He smiled again, this time it lasted longer.
Andrew is my son's name, too.
He explained that he hadn't spoken to his son in over 6 years. Estranged. Some big fight between them and he won't want to get into. Sob story. You know, just crying. I wasn't interested, but I fucking told him so anyway. His last rule, no one could charge his credit card unless he authorized them to. He would call once a week to give us his consent, and we could hit his card for the payment then. None of his requests were out of the ordinary, so we finished up his registration, I sent him on his way. After that, I never saw that motherfucker again. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine with 401. Called back every Friday to have his credit card charged. He would ask how the night was going. He'd ask if I'd seen the game. But, man, I never really knew what game he was talking about. I don't really fucking listen to rap music. But on the third week, he failed to call for his payment. This happens often in hotels. People forget what day it is. Guests may be low on money. Someone probably OD'd. So
Several people OD'd.
the morning staff monitor types up a friendly letter, slides it under the door. Room 401 always had their do not disturb sign posted, so management never did more than just, slide a note under the door and hope to hear back soon. Most of the daytime people were a bit wary of 401 because no one, other than me, had actually seen his ass. They never heard a peep from his room, never got calls from him, no requests to clean linens or towels. And after a while, you just assume they're a very private person or really like meth, and you forget all about them.
They sleep a lot. They don't eat very much, and there's a crying you could hear from their room at wee hours in the night about strange things they're seeing on the ceiling.
After 3 days, Franklin still hadn't made any payment to us, and talk was abuzz in the office about eviction. So that night, I set out my assisting guest will return shortly sign, and made my way up to the 4th floor. It was around 3 in the morning. Why the
Yeah.
That's like the worst time, no matter
Let
where
me
you are.
inconvenience you with my inquiry.
Yeah. So the hallways were empty at 3 in the morning. The corridors had been recently painted a dark shade of brown, and the old yellowing wall scones really left the whole 4th floor very dim. Hotels had always been eerie, but fascinating places to me, especially at night. You could walk from one floor to the next and never meet another soul. Never hear a sound from anyone. If you don't know any better, you might not even remember what floor you were on. I mean, they all look the same. All rooms look the same. Everything is made to be standard, uniform, repeat of a repeat. Glorious communism. Mix that with the long, empty halls that ended at closed doors. There was just something, I don't know, creepy about the place. 401 was at the very end of the hall, farthest away from the office. As I neared the room, I could hear faint music. As I drew nearer, I could make out what it was.
X gonna give it to you. What? X gonna deliver it to you. Knock, knock. Open up the door. Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
You got it stuck in my head when you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah. Woo. No, I see private eyes, but I keep hearing it to the tune of X gonna give it to you. Private eyes, they're watching you. They see your every move. Private eyes, they're watching you.
I got a bark in the background. It's making sense.
All right, seriously now. Private eyes, they're watching you. It was coming from 401. Dude was bumping. And I paused at the door. I always felt awkward knocking on people's doors because I'm an awkward person, and the idea of someone living their own lives suddenly interrupted by a banging door. The do not disturb sign was still on the handle. I knocked anyway because I'm a dick. Nothing. I knocked again. Waited 30 seconds. Knocked again. Waited a minute. There was no answer, but the music kept playing. I sighed and walked back down to the office for the night. Hated being ignored, especially when I knew someone was in the room.
And by my bitch ex-wife.
I grabbed the sheet that had all the room's extension numbers on it and called 401. After a few rings, Franklin picked up. I could still hear Hall & Oates' DMX remix in the background when he said,
Hello.
Hey Franklin, it's Andrew down at the front desk. Hey man, I was just letting you know your payment has been overdue for the past few days. Can I go ahead and charge your card?
Oh, sure, my apologies.
Franklin said.
Go right ahead. I've just been so detached from the world lately, it slipped my head.
Hey, no problem, man. Just remember that shit's due every Friday, alright? I haven't seen you in a while. Where you been hiding?
Oh, I've been floating around here someplace. Any calls for me?
Nah, not that I've gotten, nah.
Nothing from my son?
No, sir. I felt a little bad for him, because he didn't say anything for a few seconds after I answered. He eventually just told me to have a nice night and hung up. Another month passed, and things went about the same. 401 would miss a payment. I'd go up to the 4th floor, hear the same ass song playing at the end of the hall. Why you trying to put a front up for me? I'm a spy, but I'm on your side, you see? In any disguise, I still know your ass.
It's so fucking funny to me. It's like, I think DMX just released like a Christmas album. After I think he got out of jail and released like a remix of Rudolph the Red-Nosed. I shit you not. Like, you can look this up. And he's kind of cleaned up and shit ever since, I imagine, jail. And he,
oh boy.
And it's just really, it's hard for me to see him going near any Hall & Oates song, but this just makes sense to me.
I know, right?
Just a little bit.
I saw Mama kissing Santa Claus under the mistletoe.
You have no idea how accurate you are right now.
I would knock, no answer. I would call Franklin, and he'd pick up with the music on in the background, same fucking remix. I would ask to charge his card, he would consent. He would ask if his son had called. I'd tell him no, you kind of a shit dad. And now and then, there'd be some small talk. But one night in particular, he asked me,
Andrew, why are you looking up my name on Google?
And I was startled by the question, because I did. The night shift was a boring job, and, sometimes out of curiosity would drive me to Googling guests that seemed a little off. I never found much, the occasional arrest record, LinkedIn profile. Searching Franklin Waters hadn't turned up anything interesting either. I'd take that back. I found one thing. A police report behind a paywall, and from the brief, abstract information that I could access, it mentioned child abuse and a case of domestic disturbance on his file. I looked at his registration card, and the city and state on his ID matched the area where the report was filed. A week later, 401's payment was overdue again. It had become a routine by now, and I would just ascend to the 4th floor, knock on Franklin's door, get no answer, and by this time, however, I was growing frustrated with the situation. Why couldn't the motherfucker just pay his shit on time? I stood at his door and knocked longer than usual, louder than usual. After a few minutes, I swiped my master key and the door unlocked.
You just fucked up one of his rules. He had a rule. He said never come into the room.
Hey man,
that's a bad rule. You broke a rule.
You know what? Fuck his rules. This is my hotel. From the hours of 11 to 7, shit. It's my country.
I gotta say, I really enjoy how you're reading this. Putting a lot of good character into it that is not in the story. I really enjoy what you're doing with it. You're making this your own, and I appreciate it.
I swiped my master key and the door unlocked, but when I tried to turn the handle, it was jammed. I tried a few times, to no avail. I leaned closer in to peer through the peephole, even knowing that that's not how peepholes worked. Because I'm fucking stupid. And as I lead did, the familiar Holland Oates DMX remix was going into its final verse. Looking in my private eyes, they're watching you. They see it. Ooh, they're watching you.
Don't make me have to mix it. Don't make me have to create this.
Oh God.
It's gonna be like a Frankenstein thing.
Someone's gonna hear it and be like, why did you do this?
And then DMX is gonna hear it and be like, damn, I missed it. I missed the opportunity.
Yo, who's this artist? I'm gonna jump on the track with him. Baby.
And then
I think that's Ja Rule, actually.
And then our SoundCloud account soared.
That was another name I was like playing with, sort of SoundCloud Senpai, but I decided no.
Oh, that's the name. That's definitely a name.
I can only make out a blurry illumination coming from within the room as I lean closer. I put my eyes against the lens, hoping that I wouldn't get stabbed in the fucking eyeball, and hoping that I could see something, anything in the light. Then something moved in front of the hole for a while and blocked the light completely. I jumped the fuck back. I didn't stick around any longer because, you know we know better, and retreated back to the office. I didn't even call 401 that night for payment. Every inch of me was rattling with adrenaline. My fingers shook. I left a note for my manager that I needed to take my vacation as soon as possible. Wow, this guy's a bitch.
Yeah, he really pussied out real quick.
The next morning, my manager called and we worked out a schedule so I'd be off for the next week. That would drain all the vacation hours I saved, but I didn't mind. I needed to get the fuck out of that hotel for a while. I took my vacation at home, drinking, hanging out with friends, burning some Chiba, Netflix and chill.
Fuck yeah.
My nerves are starting to unwind, and I felt like I'd be ready to face the hotel again after much needed rest. But on the fourth day, my manager called, and he talked very softly, and he asked how my vacation was going. He asked if I'd gone anywhere special, and I could tell by the tone of his voice,
Disneyland!
nonetheless, that my time off was not what he was interested in.
Well, Andrew, the reason I'm calling is about 401.
Oh yeah, what about him? You missed another payment? You just have to call him sometime at night. Dude sleeps during the day.
No. You see, his credit card expired yesterday, so we slipped a letter under his door to contact us as soon as he could. But we didn't hear anything from him, so we went up to see if he was there and couldn't get in. Eventually, maintenance had to cut the lock.
He was hiding in there, huh? Capri Sun, and grabbed that from the refrigerator because I'm a fucking child.
Chuckling to myself as I grabbed a Capri Sun from the refrigerator.
Like who
is an actual line in this story.
Who? You know what? I can't judge him.
I fucking love Capri Sun. I'll mix that shit with vodka. It tastes real good.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm not gonna talk shit.
No.
My manager said.
No. He was dead.
I closed the fridge door slowly, staring back to the patio door. He dead?
Yeah. Well, we think suicide right now. We called the police out. The coroner came. We actually really need you to come down here, Andrew. When was the last time you talked to Mr. Waters?
Right before I went on vacation. Well, I ain't talked to him, but I went to his room, heard him playing that bullshit-ass music. Someone was definitely moving around on the inside, but the door was jammed then, too.
Andrew, listen.
Nice.
Me. All the food in the room was spoiled. All his payment reminders we slipped under the door were just piled up. The coroner is here. He's saying that Franklin Waters must have been dead for a while. At least a month.
What? I stammered. Are you in his room right now? Are you at the hotel?
No, I'm actually in my car. I'm driving over to pick you up. Is that okay?
Yeah, I said as I hung up. I hung up as fast as I could, and I closed the curtain. I was brimming with horror. And not because of the conversation. Not because I had spoken to a dead man. But because when my manager told me that he was in his car, I heard something playing in the background. His car radio, volume turned low, playing. Watching you. Watching you.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
I really liked that. That was good. And you know, like...
So much, like, left up in the air. And what's crazy about that story is that hotel is actually, like, a haunted site. And the room itself, that specific room, 401, is, like, one of those touristy, haunted hotel rooms that people go to and...
Oh, so someone made the story as, like, an inspiration based off of the room?
I think so, yeah. Like,
I would like to think that a creepypasta wouldn't inspire a tourist trap.
I mean, if you were smart, it wouldn't. I wouldn't just... If I hear a scary story about a place...
It's a good point.
I might go, but not without a priest or something.
I told my stepdad that if we ever go to Japan, which is on my list, I am going to the Suicide Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Need to check that shit out.
I haven't seen that movie yet, because...
The Forest is terrible.
Is it really?
Do not watch it.
See, I was trying to watch it on Netflix, and it ended up being like some Thai movie, and I'm like, this is not what I ordered.
I will say that Marjorie from Game of Thrones is a very attractive woman.
Oh yeah, she's definitely waifu material.
Does not save the movie from being absolute bullshit.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I guess I was saved. Oh shit, The Odd Kids. I know this story.
You know that one?
Yeah.
It's not what we're reading.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I can't even. So, this next one. I mean, do you want to talk about 401 a little bit? Or do you just want to, like, leave it at, like, that story was fucking cool?
As much as fun as the DMX remix was,
yeah.
Part of what drew me to the story was the fact that it's, like, in my mind, I thought of it as the original, you know, Hall & Oates song. And it's just something eerie about 80s music when played in that sort of context.
I love, what's the Police song? Every Breath You Take?
Yeah.
I love that song. I genuinely do. But, like, break that song down, and you got a fucking stalker that you need to put a fucking restraining order on.
Right behind you, baby.
And, like, I agree, like, the, Private Eyes, like, that song even slowed down for, like, a horror trailer or something would probably be pretty killer, you know?
Yeah.
I really like that story, and I really appreciate the suggestion. I thought it was great.
It's one of those that, like, really stuck out to me, and I was like, damn. Odd Kids is another very good one, too.
It's 20-some pages. I've been holding on to it.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
But we will get to it eventually. This next story that I'm going to be reading is called Arizona from Creepypasta. I got this one from a random thread online about people talking about their favorite creepypastas, and several people said Arizona, so I'm hoping that this lives up to whatever expectations I have.
Alright.
For her birthday, I took my girl, Katie, to Arizona so we could stay with some friends of hers and spend a few weeks partying and getting crazy and stuff before heading back to school for the year. 'Cause nothing is better than fucking your girl in the middle of a fucking desert state. That's always 102 degrees.
Everyone loves Sandy, and, well, to be honest, it sounds a lot like Woodstock or something. Burning Man.
Burning Man, yeah. We drove up in my dad's car. It's a really old Ford make, and it's pretty beat up. The road there was bumpy and long, like our sex life. Our relationship seemed at its strongest on the road, like our sex life. We were really in love. That was the first time I realized that. I had never truly been in love before. We were about halfway there when we realized we were going to run out of gas long before the nearest petrol pump. Katie's head was out the window, sunglasses on in the blistering heat outside, nothing but the wild desert landscape to be seen in all directions.
Sounds like you're about to be fucked.
We became frantic. We hadn't seen another car on the road in almost an hour. What if we broke down here, in the middle of the desert, with no food or water, with no one out there to find us? I sped up slightly, driven by these fears. You ever see Hills Have Eyes?
Unfortunately, I could not get past the first trailer scene. It's just not
brutal.
My bag. Yeah,
it's brutal.
I can't do it.
I'm just saying, there aren't exactly going to be atomic radiation inbreds out there, but there aren't not.
Yeah.
Is the best thing I can say. It was then that we came across a gas station, smack bang in the middle of nowhere, in dry, empty nowhere. It was an old, worn-down servo. Long yellow grass blew in the breeze beneath it. Outside were 2 rusted gas pumps. At first we didn't know if it was occupied, it seemed so lifeless. But as we pulled up and saw the petrol stains in the dirt, we were convinced otherwise. Katie started refilling the car and I went inside to pay and grab something to eat on the road. When I first went to open the door, it jammed. This perturbed me, so I looked up at the sign to check and was reassured that the store was open, according to the torn sign that hung in between the dull yellow curtains at the door window. I pushed harder and harder with effort, got into the shop. Inside it was totally abandoned and left to ruin. Complete aisles lay on the ground, the fridges were smashed, and glass coated on the floor. Despite the brightness outside, the interior of the gas station was dark and bitterly cold. Then there came from behind me this quiet weeping, like a child's.
Or
like a Hawaiian's. I felt my heart race. It was coming from the back room, and it was coming over top of I stepped over the smashed glass and twisted metal remnants on the floor over where the patches of grass had grown through. I ran my hand along the wall and felt the crisscross of ivy beneath my fingers. It was overgrown. There came the crying again, and now I was facing the back room door. It was directly in front of me.
My pineapples.
I pushed the door open and it creaked with rust in its joints. Inside there lay several wooden steps into the basement. It was pitch black, and the smell was horrific. I'm gonna stop and say, fuck to the no.
Yeah, like, why the fuck would you go down there? Why the fuck would you even look into the abyss?
Crying abyss.
Lord!
The drip drop of water alerted me to the fact that the basement was flooded. The water was up to my knees. Again, there came the crying and a small splash in the far corner of the basement. Hello? I called out. Is anyone there? I started approaching the corner. The smell was horrible and the cold water eventually got to me. The sobbing was getting louder. In the corner, I swore I saw something move amongst the shadows. Hello? I called again. What's wrong? I finally reached the corner. Still dark, I had to bend down to avoid the pipes, which leaked down my back and trickled down my spine. It felt fucking nice. The figure in front of me was very small and black. It was very small and black. It was a small black person. Hunched over, sobbing quietly, head in its hands. Why are you down here? I whispered. Then it stopped moving completely. It was totally still. All noise seemed to cease, but for the quiet dripping of a broken pipe somewhere behind me. I outstretched my arm to touch its tiny shoulder, small Ethiopian shoulder, but it then began to slowly turn in my direction to look me eye to eye. As its face swiveled around to look into mine, I remember screaming and swinging my head up in recoil, cracking on the pipes above. The face was white as a sheet, pale like a hideous moving mask. The eyes and mouth were completely black holes, huge and widening even as I looked at them. They were so huge they almost consumed its entire face. As I desperately tried to escape, it splashed towards me at a rapid speed, uncurling its long, thin fingers. It was wailing now, staring into me with its huge black eyes, and as I scrabbled up the stairs with great difficulty, as it felt my legs begin to give way beneath me. It sprinted out of the water and up the stairs towards me. I slammed the door, flipped the lock, and tore out of the store into the old Ford. Katie began to laugh when she saw me, jeans wet, trembling with sweat soaking my chest, and I grabbed her and screamed at her to drive. For about a half an hour, I could barely tell her what happened in the store. She listened and gave me a look of sheer horror when I finally gave in and told her everything. She pulled the car to the side of the road and began to cry herself. I asked her what was wrong. She said,
I saw something while you were gone. When you were in the store, I was just pulling the pump back, and I saw this little girl. And a father, I guess, a man. The father stared at me with black eyes and a hanging jaw, but the girl, oh God, the girl, she was staring right back at me, grinning with this huge smile that just stretched so far across the face. I couldn't see any hair on her. She had skin that was so dark. Not Not dark like a colored girl. Wow, colored girl? But dark like a shadow. And her smile just shone through a window. I convinced myself it was a trick of the eye and I looked away. But when I looked back, they was gone. Then a little while later you came back out, so I laughed at your ass.
I love your voice, honey. Tell me, talk dirty to me. Please. Where'd you pull that voice from?
I don't know, it's just it's like a song in my heart. I had to let it out.
Great. Fantastic. It was dusk by now. We had nowhere to stay. You have a car. Come on.
Yeah, for real.
We had not traveled nearly as much as we hoped to that day, and the nearest motel meant going back past the gas station. So we just drove up from the roadside where we were into the clearing a little way up where people camped sometimes. We had obviously come into night after a big party. There was broken glass everywhere. When we arrived, however, it was empty. After a while, I tried to reassure her that we were okay. I calmed her down, put my arms around her, and we started to kiss.
You know how to work that really good.
I moved to get closer to her when she suddenly screamed like hell itself.
It's her! It's her!
She screeched, fumbling to start up the engine. I turned in time to witness a small black face grinning literally ear to ear with only darkness inside. It was crawling into the car through my open window with its limbs splayed out like an insect. It had too many limbs with too many long arms, the fingers feeling my face like antennae. We sped off back down onto the road. With her still in the window, or just... was she not in the... Okay. Back on the road, nothing seemed right. There were no stars. I mean...
Oh, shit.
Greenhouse gases and...
Dude, you're in the middle of...
the atmosphere is like...
Of Amazon. I mean, if you don't see any stars...
Global warming is a thing.
I'm sorry. No amount of global warming can make it like Kingdom Hearts, man. Stars will just, like, fall out the sky.
That was what I noticed first. I was too shaken to think much of it, but there were no clouds that could be blotting them out. There was just the vast night sky, devoid of all light. Then a few minutes after we had been driving forward, still sweating and breathing heavily, we passed the gas station. My heart skipped a beat. The gas station was at least a half hour away in the opposite direction. All the lights were on, and I saw the door sliding open. As we shot past it, Katie was in such hysterics she found it hard to keep driving. We stopped the car in the middle of the desolate road. I decided we should switch seats so that I could drive. She shuffled across her seat to mine, and I opened the door to get out. As soon as I was outside, the foul stench of the basement overwhelmed me. I gagged, then vomited down the side of the car.
Lightweight.
It was then that I noticed the runner, a pale white thing sprinting towards us through the fog, its limbs practically a blur. I could make out no face. How long had it been following us, running after us in the night? I got into the driver's seat as quickly as possible. We drove off again, not talking. Katie whimpered, and I silently prayed. Then we passed the gas station again. The door was open now. There were two figures standing at the door, waiting. As we forced ourselves on, we both became aware of a soft, barely audible weeping in the back seats. Neither of us dared turn around. "Ignore it," I whispered, my trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. Katie was curled in the fetal position, holding her head in her hands. The wailing increased, becoming extremely loud, ear-piercing, and horrific. Finally, I ordered myself to end it and looked behind me. For a split second, I thought it was a girl in a white dress looking back up at me, but she was gone as soon as she appeared. I checked the seats carefully, and there was nothing. In my tiredness and fear, I had completely lost track of the road. I drove on, and all through the night, Katie whimpered. I touched her once, but she screamed. "Oh, Lord!" I never tried again after that. The noises from the back seat started up again. We passed the gas station twice more. The people at the door were closer and clearer every time. The finest slither of red light had begun to settle on the horizon. It was still dark as hell, but at least I was able to see the road ahead of me now. Katie had been silent, face concealed under her hands for some time. I decided to check the time, so I turned on the radio. At first, there was only static. Instead of time or anything at all, the digital clock simply appeared black. I fiddled with the dial, trying to change the station. In between the static, I found only one audible channel. It had a high-pitched buzz in the background. UVB 76. A man was muttering names and numbers under his breath.
Oh, shit.
29, Lucy. 30, Adam. 31, Katie. I switched back to static. I knew which name was next. When we got to Katie's friend's house, it was morning. It was overcast and everywhere had the smell of rain on it. Her friends weren't home. Katie's friends lived way out in the country with no one else around in a mile. The grass was climbing the walls outside. How long have they been out? As soon as we were inside, Katie started whimpering again. I realized that while she had been silent, she was biting on her lip. Blood was trickling down her chin and the skin around her mouth was torn and chewed through. She grabbed the newspaper and some masking tape off the table and began blocking out the windows. After the night events, I didn't know whether I would be insane to join her or stop her. I simply watched. She covered the windows, jammed the door, and turned the lights off. For some time, it could have been minutes or hours, we sat silent in the dark. I offered to turn the television on. Katie said nothing, sitting blank and comatose. I turned the television on anyway. It was a rerun of Family Matters.
What? Really? That's lucky as fuck. Anywhere you go. Wait, no.
It's Full House.
That's Full House, yeah. Fuck.
A grainy black and white image flickered to life before us. A white face with empty eyes and an impossibly huge smile flashed up, the smile growing wider and wider the longer we stared into it.
Damn it, Urkel.
There came the sound. Oh, jeez. There came the sound of weeping from the television, or in the house. I couldn't tell. We turned off the TV. It's been 3 whole days now. I haven't seen Katie at all today. She spends her time in the closet crying, like Tom Cruise. I once tore the door open and screamed at her. She screamed back, her face contorting into something grotesque and inhuman, and I slammed it in her face.
Jesus.
The phone rings often. A voice, my mother's, I believe, whispering under its breath. I can only catch snippets of what it says. Come back. You're always welcome to come back. Sometimes in the background, I hear a quiet chuckling. I hang up without saying a thing, usually. The bathroom is shining white. I hear the shower running and will walk in to find nothing at all. Then when I'm in the bathroom, I will hear the television flick back on. It always goes to the face. In the background, there are muttering voices now. I've called the police twice. All I get is a whispering woman's voice. I called Katie's friends, too. Just as fruitlessly. There are knocks at the door a lot now. Through the newspaper on the other side of the window, I see their hands slam against the glass and slide down. They do this for hours on end sometimes. They press their eyes up to the glass through the holes in the newspaper. At night, we hear screaming from the guest room. I boarded it up. Sometimes I find tiny pieces of glass on the ground. A leak sprang up about a day ago in the room downstairs. Black spots of mold have appeared on the walls. There's a smell throughout the house seeping from my room, the odor of decay. I pray hopelessly, and I swear to God, I wish that I had never gotten out of that car. Oh my God, and I pray every single day for a revolution. And I said,
That just sounds fucking terrifying, dude.
fuck Arizona.
With all the weird shit I hear about Arizona, like, I mean, between this and I guess Welcome to the Night Vale is the only other thing.
I love Welcome to the Night Vale.
Dude, that is just, not only is it pretty awesome, but it's just such a great source of music. And is that a Pokemon
It is
story?
a Pokemon
What is
story.
this? Is this a Lavender Town story?
No, we read that one.
Oh, yeah, you guys did, didn't you?
That one's called Jessica.
Oh.
Apparently it's really good Pokemon creepypasta.
I don't know if you know this about me, but
It's hard to imagine there being a good Pokemon creepypasta.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I play Pokemon competitively. Like, I fucking love.
I used to play the trading card game competitively.
Oh yeah, right on.
We used to go to tournaments all over Philly.
A buddy of mine, I couldn't go to this tournament, but I trained a buddy of mine to go to last year's regionals. And I guess out of 193 places, he made like 63. And it was his first time even picking up the game. And I'm like, I am Miyagi-san.
I went to regionals for the card playing game, and I had to have gotten something terrible. I forgot who swamped me, but my deck was... I was one turn away from winning. One fucking turn. It's one of those where it's like I couldn't get out my tank.
Gotcha.
And the dude just steamrolled me. I was like one turn away from getting it. I had like an evolution card somewhere.
I think nowadays...
I do love the games. I know the games very well, and I'm one of the... I think Sun and Moon is the first time I haven't picked up a game.
Sun and Moon's got so much fucking dialogue, dude. If it wasn't for VGA...
I didn't love X and Y, and then my 3DS was stolen, and I just haven't been able to pick it back up. So
degenerates.
I know.
Degenerates like that belong on a cross.
It's heartbreaking. I don't even like to talk about it that much.
Yeah,
It upsets me.
I'll pray for you.
I still have all my games. I still have my DS, and part of me tells myself that one day I'll rebuy whatever handheld they have at the time. But the truth is, like, I'm too broke right now.
Yeah.
And by the time I do have enough money to buy one, it's going to be a new console, and none of the games are going to be relevant anymore. But the kicker is it was a Club Nintendo limited edition case, and the case held games, and I had 6 of the best games in the case, as well as the 3DS, which was a launch 3DS,
right?
With the cable in the case. Everything was in there, and the 6 games that were in there were Star Fox 3DS, Smash Bros 3DS, Mario Kart 3DS, Elite Beat Agents,
nice,
Pokemon Y, another regular DS game that I can't think of.
Monster Hunter is a beautiful Nintendo game.
I like Monster Hunter.
I fucking do.
Okay, we're going to close out the episode with an unsettling story because I love unsettling stories, and this one's title definitely caught me based off of the last story we read. And we've been kind of doing this, like, motel roadside thing.
Yeah.
This episode, which is cool.
Very fitting.
Yeah?
Yeah. Hitchhiking fucking sucks. I don't know, maybe some other people get picked up more, but I had to try really hard to get picked up, and it's like, only worked out when I had a dog with me.
Yeah.
So it's like...
They cared about the dog.
Yeah, which is like, doesn't make sense, because if safety's your concern, wouldn't a dog mean more of a threat?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know what... Even now, to this day, like, I still have, like, little habits that come from hitching that... Even if I'm sitting in my mother's car or someone that I know very well in their car, I keep my backpack, like, right in front of me.
Absolutely.
And people are looking at me, and sometimes, or I just feel like someone's like kind of questioning. I'm like, oh, I don't need to put it in front of me, but I feel more comfortable.
I'm comfortable this way. So this unsettling story is called "The Reason I Don't Pick Up." The reason I don't pick up hitchhikers anymore is also the same reason why I need a new car.
Also, fuck Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, the unsettling stories have this way of having like a relatively long title that somehow gets subverted and turned around, and it makes sense at the end of the story. Keep in mind, I'd never been considered giving a ride to a stranger before. All my life, I'd been told that's how you get killed.
Only crazies hitchhike.
They'd say.
They'll cut your throat and steal your car, and you'll be dead in the ditch.
I didn't want to die in a ditch, and I liked my car. But after I'd left the gas station and I saw the poor guy sitting in the gutter on the I-95 on-ramp, shit. Home feels.
Yeah.
Feebly holding out his thumb, I made my choice. I'd be a good Samaritan. I've actually been in this exact position. Yeah. I've been getting onto I-95 to go home from class, and I have seen hitchhikers, and only once did I pick someone up.
Yeah.
The only person I've ever picked up hitchhiking was a crippled person. And it's just because that hurt to see. And it was very hard to get him in my car. And he literally only lived like 5 minutes away, so it wasn't a huge deal. But it broke my fucking heart seeing him there. But I've seen a lot of hitchhikers in Philly, so.
Yeah, it's like a huge... there's a hop out there.
No one, if they don't need it, no one has cars.
Yeah. Well, it's also like a, train hop-out spot.
Yeah, I also had the regional pass. The storm in the distance looked pretty threatening. If I let that guy sit there, he'd have to bear the brunt of it. From the looks of him, he didn't appear to be able to bear much at all. I pulled over to the side and rolled down the window.
Where are you looking to go?
I asked him.
Baltimore,
he replied. His voice was stronger than his sickly body had suggested, and that gave me pause. I looked him over again. Dirty jeans, baggy red t-shirt, no bag, no bulges in his pockets, or his pants.
No bag's a fucking red flag.
I sighed.
I can get you as far as Philly.
He nodded.
Hop in.
I told him, unlocking the door. In he hopped.
I'm Colin,
I said.
Frank.
We didn't talk much for the first few miles, aside from me asking if he wanted some of the Fritos I had left in my lunch stop in Rhode Island. He took them and crunched away as I drove. He caught me studying him out of the corner of my eye a few times, but he didn't say anything. As the miles ticked away and the rain started hitting the windshield, Frank fell asleep. The open bag of Fritos was on his lap. I wanted a couple, but didn't want him to wake up thinking I was trying to grab his dick. The truth is, I was trying to grab his dick. This is not Frowns narrating this story. I had absolutely no interest in his dick. Frank snored like an orgasming Pratt and Whitney jet engine. In the confines of the car, since I had to close the windows once the rain started, I noticed Frank had an unpleasant odor. Nothing overwhelming, but still obvious. Over his snore, his stomach growled and burbled. Gross, I thought. Lightning flashed, and wind buffeted the side of the car. The traffic ahead of us slowed to a crawl. One of the annoying things about my car is the climate control only works properly when the car is moving. God knows why. The air conditioning we were enjoying up to that point cut out, and the hot air started to blow out of the vents, and the windshield began to fog up. I cracked my window, hoping the outside air might clear the windshield, and it did a bit, but visibility was terrible. The rain was heavy, and my wipers weren't doing a good job. All I could see was a fog, and the brake lights of the car stopped in front of me. Frank's stomach kept gurgling, and I looked over. He was awake, staring straight ahead. "You okay, buddy?" I asked. No response. He just stared at the fog-shrouded glass of the windshield. The smell I'd noticed before had intensified. "Hey, Frank, what's going on? You sick?" Still nothing. Thick, humid air poured from the car's vents despite the AC being set to max. Rain and small chunks of hail pelted the choked highway. Frank retched. "Shit!" I said, and I frantically reached in the back seat for a bag or a bucket or anything that might catch what I thought was about to come blasting out of my companion. My hand settled on one of the canvas shopping bags I used at Whole Foods. "God damn it," I mumbled as I placed my favorite shopping bag on Frank's lap. He moaned and turned to look at me, his eyes swimming back and forth with what I knew had to be intense nausea. "Frank, please, open the door and puke on the side of the road, or at least use the bag. I'm begging you." More silence punctuated by gurgling and retching. A boom of thunder caused us both to jump. For Frank, that was all it took. He didn't open the door. He didn't aim for the bag. A heavy wave of yellow vomit exploded out of his mouth and splashed against the windshield, and I screamed. Another projectile torrent erupted from the man, dousing the ceiling, the dashboard, and the center console. "Get out!" I shrieked, the smell of my stomach contents invading my nose and threatening to force my own contribution to the mess. Frank sat back with his head down, pasty slime drooling from his mouth into the Fritos bag in his lap. Cars behind me were leaning on their horns. The traffic in front of me cleared up. I poked at the hideousness of the console to turn on my emergency blinkers, then steered onto the median. On my right, I heard Frank choking. I got out of the car and stood in the rain watching him. If you told me the following 30 seconds actually had lasted 3 hours, I would have told you they were way off. It felt like a day. Frank's throat bulged as something was forced upward and into his mouth. I saw the something a second later. A colossal, writhing centipede as thick as my wrist began sliding out, its passage eased by the vile lubrication from minutes before. Inch after inch, foot after foot, crawled out until it was free and it skittered under the passenger seat. I'd already dialed the 9 in 911 when the solid matter entombed his vomit began to move. Frank groaned, and I distinctly heard him mutter,
"Not again,"
as the rank soaked me. I watched as small centipedes crawled through the sludge all over the car, leaving trails as they went. My dialing complete, I waited through 7 rings before a dispatcher answered. As I told her about the medical emergency and tried to estimate where we were on the interstate, Frank abruptly opened the passenger side door and stood on the side of the highway. He was gripping another massive centipede and pulling it out of his throat. I watched it bite his hand over and over until its 2-foot length was exposed. Frank flung it into the dirt.
"Sorry about your car, man.
Frank called over the sound of the rain and traffic.
I haven't had an episode like that since I was a kid, man."
I was speechless. I just looked at him as he walked down the side of the median, the torrential rain washing his clothes of the filth and bugs. And as centipedes crawled throughout my car and ropes of stomach contents dripping from the ceiling, Frank struck out his thumb to flag down another potential ride to Baltimore.
Have you seen this photo of like a car covered in slime and like, I don't know if they were like eels. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there were eels. Like some truck was transporting eels and it crashed and it got their car covered in slime and eels.
I hadn't seen that, but that seems like something I would want to see.
You should look that up because that's exactly what I'm imagining. And it's just like, oh fuck. But the eels have legs, obviously. And it's a lot more gross.
That's hilarious.
I mean, yeah, for us.
Something about unsettling stories and centipedes. Just to call back to episode 13, my dick hurts. Something about fucking unsettling stories and centipedes. I don't fucking get it. Like, I guess they're kind of creepy. Most of them are...
They're beyond
pointless.
creepy, dude. They're fucking
horrible. You think so?
Yeah, they got like so many legs and fucking bodies are all... And you can never tell if it's a centipede or a millipede, in my opinion.
They're worms with legs. There's nothing creepy about that shit.
I don't like.
I guess like I'm like living in this basement, dealing with fucking creepy crawlies all the time. Like I think I kill a spider every day, and I think I've seen the same house centipede like 4 times.
Oh, he's your roommate.
Yeah, ever since when did I bring him up? No, I didn't bring him up. I put it on Facebook. There was a house centipede that fell from my ceiling board
one day, that's nice.
like legit onto me, and I cried. And I'm not Hawaiian, but I didn't kill it.
Uh-huh.
I felt bad for it because it's obvious it didn't want to be anywhere near me.
Right.
So I picked it up with a container and I put it in my boiler room. Next day, I fucking see it crawling through my fucking bedroom, and I'm like, okay, outside. Last week, it's probably a different bug, but I went into my garage and I fucking found one, and I was like...
It's not a different one, it's just like, bro, what, we all look the same? What's up, dude?
Right. And part of me is just like, I can't kill this thing. They kill a lot of bugs, house centipedes. They actually kill a lot of spiders.
That's cool.
They kill a lot of, like, potentially harmful insects. And they don't do shit to humans.
Right.
Except look fucking ugly. So there's nothing to really hold against it.
Might be worth making like a defensive pact with the centipedes.
The funny thing is that in Japan, they're actually pets that people like let free in, like house centipedes free in their house because they pest control. So like while someone's at work, they'll like open this container with like 2 house centipedes and let them crawl around the fucking house, and when they get back they put like a spray or like a scent on the floor and they come right to it and he captures them again. They call them like
that's actually
I want to say they call them like geji or something like that, like house centipedes over there. They sell them in fucking pet stores. The Japanese are fucking weird. But I mean, I get it. At least they have a purpose.
That makes sense.
If hornets over there are the size of your fucking thumb, then I guess it makes sense that you would have insects doing your dirty work.
Giant bugs, or like just bugs in general, are like one of the main reasons in my mind for having lasers.
Lasers.
Yeah.
We need more lasers.
Like very powerful, just bug frying lasers.
And it's so sad because like the bugs we do need in the ecosystem are totally fucking dying. And all the fucking pointless, harmful, asshole insects are multiplying.
Because the cool ones are dying.
The cool ones are actually being killed by the assholes. Insects. I usually don't like bugs. I'm pretty sure I'm allergic to anything that stings. I've never been stung, so I mean, I can't really... I don't know. Eventually I might find out.
I got stung in the neck by a bee once. That fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Had to get the fucking stinger pulled out. Not fun.
I mean, I have a lot of tattoos, so I'd like to think that it's something along those lines.
See, I have no tattoos, so I can't...
It's a needle being repeatedly put in your skin.
But you're expecting it. As a matter of fact, you're almost wanting it. Well, not almost. You are wanting it. You fucking paid for it.
You paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah. So...
That makes sense. That's a good point. I guess if I wasn't expecting it, being stabbed with something would not be great.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that. I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about that.
No. That's all right.
We'll just gloss over the whole being stabbed thing. We do like to talk about, like, modern day horror, but, like, you've been through some shit, man. And I'm glad you're here.
Me too. Sometimes. I mean, there are times where I have to be an adult and shit, and I'm like, really, dude? You were, like, right on the doorstep. You could have just left and not had to file your taxes this year.
So this was Lotsa Pasta, lots of... We didn't do a preface. I hope you were high this entire time. I really do, because neither of us can be. It's what's life? When is medical going to be approved in this state? No one knows. The future will find out.
Next time
on Lotsa Pasta
Ball Z.
How'd you feel about this episode? How'd you feel about recording for the first time?
It was very strange. I've never recorded, like, myself before, except for, like, short YouTube videos and shit. I don't have a horrible reading skill, I think, but...
No, absolutely not.
Part of my mind was like, oh god, don't Mayweather this, like, really, like...
You didn't, for evidence.
Yeah. It was cool. I've never been on a show that I've listened to or, like, consumed before. This is a very new experience. Awesome. Pretty awesome.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you had a fun time. You did a really good job. I'd love to have you back whenever you want. Whenever you're in town, you just let me know. I hope everyone else enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed the stories. I thought they were cool. Arizona was a little disappointing. I think it's because I had expectations. I did expect it to be like a little bit more. We read a story in 28, I think, where it's like gas stations and time loops and shit. Yeah. And I kind of wish it stuck to more of that, where like they keep going past the same gas station. There's a movie that does that, and I can't remember the fucking name, but it's about like reapers following people. Oof. And they like see them and they keep reliving the moment of their death, and I just forget what it's called. Very cool stuff though. I did enjoy all the stories we read. Unsettling stories are always fun, and I loved 401. I thought that was great, and that was a lot of fun to read. So I hope everyone else had a really fun time. Is there anything you want to add before we sign off?
Senpai will no longer notice you, so sorry.
Keep on sighing, keep on crying.
Two to the one to the three. I like good pussy and I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe, and I get more ass than a toy.